Hey Mama, welcome to episode 32. My name is Sharon. I am a busy mom and I'm so glad that you are here. Today we're going to be getting into, I'm so excited, planning your personal growth retreat. Maybe your first one if you're new around here. This is something that I've been doing for the past few years that I love. I'm an introvert by nature, so I really enjoy having long stretches of time where no one needs me. You may feel that in your soul as a busy mom yourself. So I try to do a personal growth retreat at the end of a year or realistically at the beginning of the following year. So in early 2023, I have a date on the calendar set aside for my personal growth retreat. That week after Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas, is always a lovely week for things like this because it's sort of a weird week. Where there's not really a lot going on, but you feel kind of weird, like it's like, what day is it? It's a weird stretch of time. So that may be a good time for you to think about potentially doing this for yourself if you feel inspired to. So when you're planning your first personal growth retreat, I strongly suggest that you determine sort of like your overarching goals, but don't over plan. Now, this is from the over planner herself telling you not to over plan. You just want to be careful that you sort of see where the day takes you. I really believe you should have a large stretch of time. This isn't the kind of thing you can be like, oh, I have an hour from 11 to 12. You're probably not going to be able to use that time as productively as you would if you knew you had a whole afternoon or a whole day. And you want to try to decide what your ideal outcome would be, but again, you don't want to overplan, like at this time I'm going to do this, and at this time I'm going to do this. You sort of have to organically see where the day leads you, which I know can feel intimidating, especially if you're taking time away from your family to be doing this, but trust me, it works. The next thing you want to do is make sure that you choose a productive location for yourself. So whether, for me, that's usually like the library or a Starbucks, like a quiet Starbucks if I can get there early in the morning, and just a time or a place where you can kind of focus and be separated from your everyday life. If my husband can get our daughters out of the house, some days I'll go with that, but more often than not, I find it's better for me to actually leave my typical surroundings so that I can dive deep into this work. I suggest next that you decide on a timeline. Again, as much time as you could possibly take would be my recommendation, but I usually do 3 to 4 hours. So either a morning or an afternoon, whenever you feel freshest, to kind of do some of this like reflection and this sort of thinking about where you want to go for the next year personally and on your personal growth journey. To set yourself up for success, I strongly recommend thinking ahead of some things that may make the process easier. So for example, before I go on my personal growth retreat, I like to do our annual money meeting with my husband. So I talked about our annual money meeting in a previous episode, in episode 28. You can find more information about that. But I like to have already done that meeting before I do my personal growth retreat because I've had some conversations with my husband. We've clarified some things. We've reprioritized some finances. So I have a better sense of where we stand financially. I have a better sense of like what we're shooting towards as a couple, as a family. And then that helps me sort of understand where I fit in that puzzle and make sure that I'm not going too far off the path. If there's something that I want to invest in or something like that, that I'm thinking through on my retreat day, it's good to have that conversation already started with my husband at that annual meeting. So if there's also any, so I think about finances a lot with that, but if there are any other conversations that you want to have ahead of time, for example, like any vacations you want to take or any career changes you want to make, having those conversations with stakeholders in your life is important to do before this retreat. If you can. If it sort of comes up in the process of your retreat, obviously you'll do that after the fact, but just try to be proactive with some of those things so that you're not sitting there going, oh, I wonder if, I could do this in June. Sometimes it's helpful to have those conversations ahead of time. And then finally, I strongly suggest keeping a list in your map book of things that you want to take time to think about. So for example, one of the things that I wanted to really think about in the coming year is how serious I am about trying to get my book published this year. So that is something that's written on my list. I have a running list in my map book. Whenever I think of something, I add it to the list. And that way, when I sit down this time of year, I can see exactly what I sort of had on the back burner earlier in the month or earlier in the year to think about during this retreat, this time that I have to myself. So on the podcast this week, I'm going to share my actual agenda for my solo retreat this year, what I'm hoping to accomplish, my goals, maybe some of my activities depending on how specific my goals get for this year. I'm going to be sharing more about how my last solo retreat went last winter and what I'm planning to do differently this year based on how last year went. And I have some good ideas to share with you, so I'm excited for that. And then next week in 2023, when you're tuning in for that episode, we're going to actually dive into planning your year as a whole. So thinking kind of big picture about some of those things that you're moving towards, which I'm really excited about. As always, I have a link below to my mailing list. If you put your email address in, you can sign up to receive weekly personal growth delivered right to your inbox. It is a 2-minute, I call it a mini newsletter, where you can implement a 2-minute action step and just kind of get your personal growth on without derailing your family life too much. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check that out. And you can also find me on Instagram in between episodes at Sharon Legier Coaching, or over on my website, SharonLegierCoaching.com, where you can find out more about me and find out about some of the services that I offer. All right, Mama, I hope you and your family have a very excellent holiday and New Year, and I will see you in 2023. Bye.